I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and this is a special edition CRM Players. Isn't it kind of cool when we get the chance to do special edition CRM Players now?
Well, the good thing is we don't try to guess what week it is because we're never right.
No, I don't even guess what day it is at this point because they all seem the same.
Well, no, you guessed it the other week. You said it was Blur's Day.
Well, it's not Blur's Day today, is it? Anyways, it's a day. It's a good day. It's a good day because we actually get a chance to catch up with somebody we've known for years, and they're doing really interesting things today. And well, why don't we just go ahead and bring him on? There he is, John Hernandez. John is the SVP and General Manager of Genesys Engage. John, hey man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, man. It's good to catch up with you guys. It's been a while.
Yeah, I still remember that time in San Diego, man. You and I, you told me in the pre-show that you were drinking only Jack Daniels.
That's pretty much it. I'm committed to one person only. That's it.
You know what I need to do? You need to, when all this COVID stuff starts to clear up and human beings can get together in the same room, you need to come over, and I will do everything in my power to, let's say, enhance your range of alcohol.
I'll take you up on that challenge.
I've got a lot that you'll love, I promise.
So where are you? I was going to say calling in from, but who calls anymore? We're doing video here. Where are you located right now?
I am hunkered down in Silicon Valley, right in San Jose, California.
Man, I remember that place. It seems like it's been forever since I've been there, but it's good to see you. Good to get you from there, and it's good to talk to you because there's some really interesting things you guys are doing over at Genesys. Before we jump into all of that stuff, though, you just flashed the Raider hat or the Raider paraphernalia. So we can get one question out of the way is, oh, there it is, the Raider cup. We can get one question out of the way is, no, he's not a Patriots fan, so that's why we're able to do this.
That's it's a Patriots is the only forbidden fan.
That's the one rule here on the show, huh? I can live with that. I can live with that.
All sorts of fans are available, including my hypnotizing fans. So John, you might not want to look directly into that fan because we can ask you all sorts of things.
Getting sleepy looking at it. Hey, just for the record, going way back, that was a fumble during the Snow Bowl. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that tuck rule thing. Oh. Oh my God. Yeah, we both have a gripe on that one. So there.
All right, everybody up in New England switching off right now.
As far as I'm concerned, because you're both my friends, I'm with you. Hopefully that game didn't matter to me whatsoever. No.
Hey, so how long have you been at Genesys? Because we've known you for so long, but how long have you been with Genesys?
I returned to Genesys in May, so just a few short months now. But as you guys recall, I was back at the turn of the century, 20 years ago, I was at Genesys. So I've come back after about 18 years. But as you guys know, never left the customer care industry.
No.
Near and dear to my heart. So it's great to be back at Genesys now.
Well, I'll say one thing. I mean, it seems from everything I've seen and heard that Genesys itself seems to be taking kind of an evolutionary step well beyond the old days of just call centers, contact centers, IVR, telephony, which is, used to be thrown in the same bucket as, say, Alcatel or something like that, but doesn't seem to be that at all anymore. So why don't you fill us in a little bit on that kind of evolution? I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Just over a year ago, there was a CEO change, and Paul moved on from the role here, and Tony Bates was brought in from the industry by the investors. And Tony and I go way back in 2005, 6, 7 range, back in our Cisco days together then. And so he and I reconnected last summer at the Experience Show in Denver. He had just come on as CEO. I was running a MarTech firm called Celogen at the time. And he and I just started collaborating on things that he was seeing in the industry, things that were top of mind for him, things that I had been seeing in some of the customers that I was working with in the MarTech space. And we really saw this convergence of data and insight and organizations of marketing, sales, and service. And as he started shaping the future for Genesys, and coming up with the vision that we have today within the company around experience as a service, he really broadened that concept out and started adding things like employee and consumer data and AI and machine learning and predictability into the mix on top of that. And overarching, adding the whole concept of empathy. And we say empathy, a lot of folks say it out there. It's not just being nice, it's actually listening and digesting and acting upon that information to really provide that relevance. And so the company's gone through a pretty big transformation in the last year, just under Tony's leadership, and the company's thriving over it right now, which is great to see.
One thing that's really interesting is that you said you started back in May. Interesting time to start back in May with what's going on, with the pandemic and everything. And so tell us a little bit about, coming back to Genesys at this particular point in time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just from a human perspective, onboarding into a role like this remotely comes with its challenges, right? I mean, thank goodness for video and the ability to connect that way, but it allows you to scale and be very productive because we can have so many meetings in a single day. There's no travel time associated with it. But at the same time, you don't get that human touch. And so it takes a little bit more time of connecting with people, reconnecting with folks that I had known previously. But at the end of the day, the organization was just hungry for what the next direction would be around the Engage business, and got a lot of champions and passion around that, which actually helped my ramp up very quickly to understand what we need to go tackle, what we need to lean into more and really drive a strategy. And that's where we've ended up this week with a launch around what we call multi-cloud architectures, and how Engage really fits into the marketplace and focuses in on our customers and buyers that are in the call centers every single day, whether it's agents or supervisors or administrators, executives, architects, and really helping them drive that customer journey for their customers, both businesses and consumers alike. And so onboarding was a little challenging from not being in the office, but at the end of the day, just so many great people and passion around what's going on, that it made it much more seamless of coming back on board.
So, one of the things, before we get to multi-cloud specifically, one of the things that really interests me, look, I recently it's a year now, but I wrote a book on customer engagement, right? And if you look at kind of, let's say, pre-COVID views of customer employee engagement, it was, to put it in the aphorism that everyone loves to say, which isn't necessarily always exactly right, which is that happy employee, happy customer, right? Which is, again, that I think that comes from, I actually think that comes from happy wife, happy life. That husbands are all supposed to memorize. But the view of that is, you have employee engagement, which makes them happy, and that will lead to customers who, when they engage, will be happy because the employees will be happy. But you're not viewing it that way in the context of COVID, right? You guys are, from what I'm gathering, and please, correct and or elaborate on this, you're basically saying, no, the employee is the customer and the customer is the employee now. It's a different world than what we had. So can you elaborate on that a bit? Because that fascinates me.
Yeah, absolutely. So many great employees within the company here, waking up every day, helping our customers with their empathy and predictability and personalization on how they're going to engage with their customers. And so, making sure that employees are at the top of the thought process here at Genesys. Tony has brought in a new head of HR, Eva, who has brought on that whole concept of employee first and diversification. And obviously, as I was onboarding and she came on the same exact day I did, as she was onboarding, there was so much going on in the world, COVID globally, racial injustice, and diversity across many lines of what the world is trying to digest right now and shape a path forward. And so immediately bringing on or promoting somebody within the company to be the chief diversity officer, right? Looking at how we have the health and well-being of our employees top of mind through programs to help folks through challenging times, understanding that we're all working from home for the most part and dealing with the balance of life and work. And, the typical 8-hour day, let's call it, where you clock in at 8 and take 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch and clock out at 5. It's just not that way anymore. We have to put into our daily work lives now. I got 2 school-age children. How are they going to do remote learning? Who's going to feed them lunch? They're not at school having lunch, right? And so my wife and I trying to balance that. But lots of programs within Genesys to help folks get through that, as well as be flexible through the workday to make sure that people are taking care of their families as well. And so, recognizing that everybody's been just working so hard, like we'll agree, right? Over video, I'm here in this room, right? You could be on 12 hours of meetings a day. So it's very productive, but you kind of lose sense of things if you don't break away from it. And so what Tony and Eva put in place here was this month of August, every Friday is off for every employee globally.
Wow.
Kind of take a breath, and take an extended weekend with your family and just kind of relax a little bit as much as you can. And all those types of things mean a lot to everybody that's working really hard with the passion around our customers, but staying healthy at the same time.
Could you talk a little bit about, maybe expand on this, and maybe this is where we jump into some of the things that you guys are doing. Things have changed so dramatically and so rapidly for customers, for employees, for companies, for communities, because of what's taking place. Digital transformation might have meant something before COVID. It probably means something else now. But can you talk about, just how rapid things change in the context of, this transformation, and how it changed for both customers, employees, experience, expectations, everything, and then how you guys are looking to address that?
Yeah, for sure. I think we all recognized in the industry and in the overall customer journey and customer experience type worlds that digital has been exploding for years, right? Voice continues to go up as well as a touch point, but digital's really been exploding. I think what we've seen through the COVID crisis and what's that's done to the world of commerce and engagement is digital is taking off even faster. And so you have organizations that are trying to scale against the new demands that consumers and businesses alike are putting on those companies. Everything increasing, whether it's a financial institution or a state organization of unemployment or other areas across the board in all industries, the engagements are going up quite significantly. And so you have a few options as an organization. There is add more employees to take on that increased scale that you need, and some companies are doing that for sure. But the other is really getting your digital engagement down to where you're using things like chatbots and SMS and chats overall, and engagement through mobile apps, predictive engagement algorithms to increase and streamline those interactions, and making sure that digital engagement is continuing to ratchet up against consumer and business expectation. And what we've seen out there is that we're now starting to see customers actually have more digital engagements per day than phone calls. And that's a unique thing that I think we were getting there anyway, just based on consumer demands and how people want to interact. But because of COVID and the increase of scale that's blown up in everybody's organization, it's really driven that much faster in the marketplace.
All right. So you guys have something that's really, look, honestly, so if I go back in your history and I look at, the original history of Genesys, it basically was hardcore kind of company. You associated Genesys with effectively the telecommunications industry, even if it wasn't in it. It didn't even matter. It's how you thought of the company, right? Now you've, let's say, gone from something that was effectively left-brained, meaning mechanical and wired, and to something incredibly right-brained, which is engagement and behavior and experience. And you actually built something, a technology that can support and enhance and sustain and enable that engagement and experience, which, from my perspective, both as, as an analyst watching the market, well, and as a person, engaging all the time, is totally aligned with what the market actually needs at the moment. So my question is, can you tell us about both the technology, but also the thinking that went into looking at, Genesys Engage and the broader side of it to begin with? Why you even decided, okay, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, at the highest level, and what employees are very excited about and customers alike is at Genesys, we're kind of the candy store of applications for customer care. But we can go small to large to high functionality to things right out of the box to get you running quickly. And so we're pretty unique in the industry of having that breadth and depth of portfolio compared to the competitors out there. Like you said, some of them are very voice centric, some are very digital centric. But not many have the breadth and depth that we have, and we feel that's a unique position. So when we looked at it out there and what our customers that are utilizing today are requesting, and couple that against what the market is looking like as all the things that we just talked about on the triggers and pivots that are happening in the industry, we were pretty excited to take a look at the portfolio and say, look, here's the things that we should be investing into around AI and digital engagement and leveraging the heritage of the voice contact center of the past, but adding all those rich capabilities around it. We've been doing that for a number of years now. This isn't something new that we're embarking on. The thing that we are launching this week, and what we feel is very unique in the industry, is making sure that this is a multi-cloud, multi-vendor type model, meaning all companies want choice and flexibility of how they're going to consume the technologies. And so making sure that we have the relationships with, the best cloud infrastructure companies out there, Amazon, Google, Microsoft with Azure, Oracle, IBM, right? And through public and private edition type models, those capabilities available to those organizations depending on how they want to consume it. But it doesn't just end there. It really is an industry-wide initiative of making sure that we're taking all the application uses that we have in there, workforce management, the capabilities around AI and bots and predictive engagement and journey orchestration and all that key rich digital content merged in with the contact center, but then also broadening it across two other big ecosystem areas where we see this industry initiative taking off. The first one is around technology providers, that do AI and bots and machine learning, like the Googles and the Nuances and Microsoft and Amazons of the world. And then workforce management type capabilities for customers that have that preference for another vendor like a Calabrio in that area. So making sure that there's choice among technology vendors as well. And then the real big one is around go-to-market and how we enable our system integrator partners like BT and OBS and NTT and Accenture and Aria and Avtex and Converge One and on and on and on. There's just this big rallying cry in the marketplace that's hungry for the technology that we develop and bring to market every single day, including the consumption models to bring that in to drive that predictive personalized engagement and hone in on the North Star, which again is what we call experience as a service, and helping companies achieve the momentum to get there. And so by bringing all these folks together in an environment where we drive this ecosystem initiative collectively is looking to be a really big winning recipe that customers are really rallying behind.
You had mentioned around some of the things that you kind of built this on, the ideas of flexibility and control and being able to allow folks to kind of, lack of a better way, get in where they fit in, where whether they're ready to rock and roll and get to the cloud quickly. Yeah, whether they're ready to rock and roll, get to the cloud quickly, or whether they have a lot of legacy and on-prem and they still need to get some things quickly, but they still have this other stuff to kind of think about, worry about. Talk a little bit about that flexibility and control aspect of what you guys put together.
Yeah, it's a key tenet of the overall strategy initiative is, there's still a lot of contact centers that are on-prem for all the right reasons that they choose to do so. They're all looking at how do I get to cloud and what's the best way to get there. And some, big and small, just go straight away to cloud. And we're here to support that type of a model for sure. Some of the big guys out there like, Whirlpool and Microsoft just going straight away to cloud with us to gain all the benefits of, a service that's managed by Genesys and they do the moves, adds, and changes integrated into their environment, whether it's at Microsoft with Teams and Azure and Dynamics for their contact center operations. But not only that, but other options to your point, Brent, around, there's some customers that are on-prem that it's a project to move things to cloud, but in this day and age, they need to move quickly to things like digital and AI. And so what we've enabled here is for those customers to keep the Engage solution that they've bought into and are leveraging today on-prem and run very quickly with the innovation around the bots and the AI and workforce management and those other capabilities and consume those from the cloud and interoperate with the on-prem, which again allows to run fast without having undue risk put onto their operation, especially right now. And then as time permits, put the programs in place to move the rest of the applications to the private or public cloud that they choose to use.
So a few comments with a question. First, the first comment's not really all that positive, to be honest. I don't see how this is going to get the Raiders a single additional win. Like none. I mean, it's like zero wins above replacement. What can I tell you? So I'm sorry. I
just hope they play. Let's just let them play.
Wait a minute. I thought Al Davis's motto was just win, baby, not just war, baby.
Right.
So let's get this right, man.
What can I tell you? So, all right. So that I'm sorry. As an analyst, you have to be blunt. Right. So here's the other thing that's interesting to me, and there's two parts. One is that you seem to be, and I may be misstating this somewhat, but you seem to be the kind of infrastructure as a service for infrastructures as a service, meaning you're like the container for the other ones, really. And theoretically, within your multi-cloud architecture, Azure and AWS and can literally, interoperate. So, which, if that's true, that's actually a really big deal because one of the biggest problems I keep hearing about is the interoperability among those actual cloud infrastructures. And that's number one. The second one is on the sort of hybrid part of that, where, private, public, and it's kind of, you get to pick and choose both, I'll call it, capabilities and services and channels and so on, which is a really kind of striking, although well aligned with it's aligned with, but not identical to like microservices and how you would treat them, but they're not really microservices, but a similar idea from what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you effectively say, okay, well, I can't really make that move from on-premise to cloud quickly, partly because we won't get the buy-in and we don't understand it that well, but because I do need this and this and this, I'll cherry pick these three things, put them together, make them work together, and kind of do a proof of concept or win-win or whatever the hell, we all have our historically, little wins, whatever, all these things. But we'll prove those work, and then we can maybe start expanding the capabilities. So tell me, one, am I wrong about infrastructure as a service for infrastructures as a service and the interoperability? Because that's, to me, a huge deal. And two is, can you actually easily do that kind of cherry picking and integration of the cherry picked pieces and services for the particular customers?
Yeah, for sure. One clarification though, before I jump into that is, the Engage platform has been fully containerized in a microservices world.
Okay.
So that is the technology that we're working within. But yes, to your point, and that's why we talk about flexibility and control, is we found it very important from the customers we talk to that they have the ability to choose which projects, which applications, which cloud infrastructure that they want to move to. Now, everybody is focused on the same type of predictive, personalized service. That's a given across the board. That's common. But how they do it is different. Some of them have different business objectives. Some could be grow revenue, some could be reduce costs, some could be around driving NPS. There's a variety of different business outcomes that folks are looking at. And so, yes, I'll give you a prime example. We're seeing a big uptick right now of Engage in a private or public cloud environment, call it Azure, AWS, on-prem in some cases, and interoperating with, for instance, workforce engagement solution from Genesys in AWS. And so interoperating those things to deliver the expected outcomes that those companies are looking for. So it's a very common thing. And so we had a new head of sales come on board a few weeks ago, ML Mako, who comes from the industry. And it's all about discovery and talking with customers and providing the data on the choices they have and fitting within their world versus us coming into it and saying, hey, this is what we have to offer and it's gonna work for you. It's the ability for our sales and solution consultants and services people to sit down with customers and say, what does your world look like and how can we help you out and insert in areas that are going to drive it? Maybe their IVR is old and outdated and it's time to just upgrade that piece. We have an offer for that to interoperate with everything else you have. Maybe they need to get some innovation quickly around AI and bots. We can insert with that and don't have to disrupt everything else. And that allows for over a period of time for them to modernize the entire architecture, but at their pace with reduced risk and in their control.
Can I jump in and I mean, the technology part, yeah, it's easy to see that people need they need new tech to do some of the things that you just talked about. But there's also this component of, okay, yeah, they know they need new tech and they know they need to be able to do things differently because, things are changing and rapidly evolving and customer expectations along with employee, expectations for how they work and the way they need to work. First, do you feel, or maybe I should just add, what on a scale like 1 to 10, how ready are your customers for this new world to be able to be successful, not only in implementing these new technologies, but being able to do it with empathy? That's a word that we hear a lot from a lot of different vendors. There's a lot of focus on empathy because let's face it, customers are hurting. They are facing things they've never faced before. They need additional support. So are your customers ready, from an organizational standpoint, from an empathetic standpoint, to handle the change beyond the technology that they need to implement, but just being able to, and maybe what are they asking you guys beyond the technology to help them with?
Yeah, it's a great question. And definitely everybody really focused on the word empathy. Now, what we engage with customers on is assuring that we're just not, again, talking about being nice to your customer, right? It's not picking up the phone and being friendly. That's not necessarily showing empathy. It's listening to the feedback and challenges that consumer or business customer might be having at the moment. There's a lot of things that have been forced upon folks globally because of the COVID crisis we're in. And it's taking in that information and digesting it as an organization and bringing it back out to show changes in your strategy, of your engagement, of your personalization. Those types of things are truly driving empathetic engagements. And so to your point, it's our own employees being trained and bringing real world examples of their consumer life into how we engage with customers. Because at the end of the day, we're all consumers as well, right? And so I see it through my kids' eyes of how they engage with brands they do business with. And if it's not frictionless, they're never they could care less if you're friendly to them. If you force them to fill out a form with their name and address and credit card information, you just lost that kid for life, right? You got to fit into their world and show that you're listening to how they want to engage. That's just one example. There's tons of other examples just like that. So to our point around multi-cloud, it's our own employees being able to engage with customers. And to your question, are customers all getting their heads wrapped around that? Absolutely. Now, do they all know how to get there? Absolutely not. And so we're here to help based on all the other customers that we touch and bringing that wisdom together to share. But that's why we felt it was so critical to have this industry initiative with all those companies I just mentioned, because they have a scale in their organizations to bring that to bear for those customers as well. You know, somebody like an ARIA or an Avtex or an NTT Dimension Data, you know, tremendous experience in the customer care world. And so they can be the enabler of our technology into those customers, just like our own services people can as well. So we think we've created this really strong position of, again, an ecosystem of initiative and enterprise out there to really have those engagements. Use the technology as the backdrop to all of that, but it's much bigger than that. To your point.
So to the this is sort of semi pre-planned. That's why I'm saying right. So look, here's the thing. You know, if I look at your history as a company again, and you used the words just a second ago, you said customer care, you know, and Genesys, one way or the other, was also seen from the contact center, call center side of things. However, you're reaching well beyond customer care, especially when it comes to the data side, you know, because in order to actually kind of, let's say, be empathetic in the way you described it, in order to both personalize and humanize the engagement of, you know, with the customer and the employee, you have to start reaching into all kinds of data that are not specifically related to customer care. In fact, broadly defined well beyond customer care. That leads to something you just mentioned. Look, I mean, we live in a world now of ecosystems and platforms. That's what this world is. And if any technology company that doesn't get that is literally nuts, right? And will pretty much probably fail in the long run. Or they'll succeed teeny tiny bit, but they're not going to go too far. You have been talking, you know, throughout. You've been sprinkling the term ecosystem in what you're saying, and certainly platform's an obvious thing here. But talk more about the actual thinking around ecosystems, because that to me is fundamental. Because, you know, when it boils down to it, your customers and your employees have, let's call them, their own personal ecosystems, which are not just the things that Genesys does, that go well beyond what Genesys does. At the same time, Genesys has to pay attention to those, or else they're going to miss a lot of boats, and finally miss trains, boats, and planes. Right? So, you know, the thing is that what's the how do you actually conceptualize as a company? How are you thinking about ecosystems in the context of the world we're in and the world we hopefully will get to in a better way?
It's a great point. And, you know, the heritage of Genesys has always been open and extensible, right? So it's still a core tenet of the strategy that we're talking about. And that's why we can talk about ecosystem, like you're saying. But it's bringing in data and insight. And the one that's always been common over the years has been CRM, right? Which I think we'd all agree is system of record. It's great to have that insight of who the customer is and what they've done previously. But the things that are so critical right now is I call the windshield view of the customer. What's going on right now in their lives? Was there an event that changed? Did they buy a house? Did they have a child? Did they get a dog? And that data is out there in these MarTech organizations of, you know, bringing that insight in to be more and more personalized, obviously fitting in within the data privacy laws around the world, and bringing that in to be insightful. It's tying into the e-commerce tools. You know, this happens so many times out there. Is you go online, you put something in the shopping basket, and you go, you know what? I need to ask a question on this. Do I chat with somebody or do I pick up the phone? Either way, that call center agent doesn't have that visibility into that e-commerce tool, doesn't know what's in the shopping basket. Why not? We should integrate that in. So at that openness of tying into that to say, Hernandez picked up the phone and is calling me, and he has shoes sitting in a shopping basket that he's abandoned. And yes, we're digitally hitting him to go buy those shoes, but he just picked up the phone. a simple database dip to say, Hernandez shoes shopping basket, skip the IVR. You don't need to ask him any qualifying questions. Just get him to an inside salesperson that can help him buy those shoes and remove the friction in that, right? Or the ability to have insight around what's happening around like energy, like if there's an outage or something going on, a natural disaster, be proactive with a digital push of engagement so that people don't all have to pick up the phone and call you. And these are just real simple, basic things. And there's obviously ones that get more complex, but the extensibility of the multi-cloud, multi-vendor strategy of ours is just that. And creating those alliances in that space to bring that data in, to put into the cockpit, into the agent desktop, to give them that insight and automate through predictive routing.
Man, this has been a great conversation. We covered a lot of ground. We went in a lot of different areas. I want to give you the opportunity to let people know or tell people where they can go to find out about some of the things that you are announcing and some of the things that you'll be offering.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have a press release later this week, so that'll be hitting the wire. So take a look for that. We're also doing a keynote at an event called CCW this week to get a little bit more detail on that. And then obviously going to the Genesys webpage, we'll have all kinds of information on the launch happening this week, including blogs and promotion from all the partners that I mentioned earlier. So again, this isn't just a Genesys event. This is an industry event. We're kind of leading the charge with it all here, but all these other companies rallying with us to bring this to market. And so we're real excited about it. You know, the vision that Tony has shaped for the company is a rallying cry of the North Star of everything we wake up every day doing around development and coding and software and services, bringing to our customers, and ultimately giving them choice and flexibility and digesting those applications to help them get to that place. And that predictive, proactive engagement again, but again, showing empathy and digesting the information, utilizing it for future changes in your operation to really drive that empathetic type engagement overall. So we're real excited about this. Lots of passion across the employees here. I appreciate you guys inviting me on your show. I love catching up with you guys. And again, thanks very much for having me today.
Entirely our pleasure, my friend. And just the only sad thing is no more wins for the Raider for the.
You're killing me. I'm going to hit you after this, by the way.
I just realized I'm actually wearing like kind of silver. It's more, I mean, gray, I guess, and black. But at least I still got the Rams logo on there.
Oh my God!
I hadn't even thought about that, man.
Oh my!
That's how much of a welcoming guest we are here.
Wow.
We've both been in LA a few times, so we got that in common as well.
There it is. Hey, this has been a real pleasure. Definitely, we can't let years go by the next time you come on with us.
Yeah, for sure. We can let only Jack Daniels go by to something. We're going to do something else.
I'm never going to live that one down.
No.
United Airlines trained me well. That's all they got on the plane.
You know what? Reskilling is something I'm very good at.
And on that, the interesting note, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz, and we will see you on a live stream sometime soon. See ya.
Take care, guys.